Now, the establishment, you might have noticed, is starting to attack Bernie Sanders again. Well, that's funny. There's no election. He's traveling around with Tom Perez. He's trying to do this unity tour. Of course, that's getting some on the progressive side a little angry, understandable. And, of course, he's recently endorsed Democrats like James Thompson. So, you know, he's endorsing Democrats. He's traveling around the country. He's trying to work with the Democratic Party to try to bring unity. Again, there are a lot of people that will disagree with that, and I can understand why. But despite that, the establishment is still continuing to try to destroy him. So what in the world would they be attacking him for with all those things? Well, it's because he apparently doesn't want to play by the establishment's rules. Now, I pointed out recently that there were some articles in Slate and the Washington Post that were attacking Sanders. Again, this brings me right back to the primary. When you had 16 articles, for example, in the Washington Post that were critical of Bernie Sanders within 16 hours. That has got to be some kind of a record or something. I mean, that's crazy. That has to be organized, orchestrated. And maybe it is, or maybe it's not. Maybe I don't know. Now, one of those articles compared Bernie Sanders to a dictator because he, get this, he has a podcast. For fuck's sake, dude. Oh, he's got a podcast just like you got Chavez. Oh, but he's not a dictator, but I just totally compared him to a dictator who's full of himself. Oh, my God. Here we go. Now, there's another article out on Saturday that uses another, what they claim to be a, well, okay. There's another article out on Saturday written by somebody named Steve King. Now, he's going to go through and he's going to use some different attacks against Sanders. The fact that he was, oh, he's got it's too big of an ego. It's all about himself. He doesn't actually serve progressives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this guy is, well, he claimed to be a gigantic Bernie Sanders fan, but I don't really buy that. And as I go through the article, you will probably see why. Now, he starts out by saying, I was always a big Bernie Sanders fan. In the darkest days of the Bush administration, he was a big deal. I still remember in 2006 when he won the U.S. Senate seat and thinking it was just the beginning. Democratic socialism was finally blowing up the way it should, and that he was a legend in the making. So this is, again, this is Steve King, okay? Well, look at that. So, King, going back to 2006 to get some Bernie cred, right? Man, I was with that Bernie Sanders guy, this cat, before he was cool, man. Then he suddenly got cool, and he's not cool anymore. He then says, after he ran against Hillary Clinton, and actually maybe had a chance of winning, well, his opinion had to happen to change. Quote, last year I learned some things that made me question why I always loved Bernie Sanders. He was playing dumb about knowing or helping up-and-coming populist Democrats such as himself, and was instead letting the DSCC, the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee, by the way, and the Obama administration pick safe, boring, centrist primary candidates who could barely skate by to win a close election. Many of them went down in flames, but Sanders had crossed the psychological Rubicon of betrayal. His silence spoke volumes. How could a man who claimed to be leading a revolution leave so many of his own people on the field and still maintain the veneer of being a man more of the people? Now, from the first part, this actually sounds like it might be a good critique, or a critique from the left. I wouldn't say good, but a critique from the left, as I've heard some of the similar things. Hey, why didn't you do progressive candidates? Well, on that point, he might actually have a couple of decent examples to back him up. One of them is Tim Canova. Now, look, I wasn't happy about his silence on the issue. I wish he would have endorsed Canova and really gotten in the middle of that race. Well, he did endorse Canova, sorry, but he did not go and campaign for Canova. So, look, again, that was a lot of people were angry about that, me included, because I think he had a shot of beating Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Now, the other thing is, what this guy doesn't mention is that he was also throwing his support behind very progressive Zephyr Teachout, as well as other progressives. Now, King writes, grudgingly, I suppose, he did endorse a couple of candidates in 2016, after the primaries, of course. Among them, 2 congressional incumbents, one of whom is pro-life, and the other, Russ Feingold, an old Senate friend, and perfect human. Okay. No, that's actually factually wrong. He endorsed quite a few candidates. For example, you had James Thompson, who was very progressive running in Kansas. He could have actually won. He endorsed James Thompson, and he went after the Democrats for not helping James Thompson win. So he could have beat Ron Estes. This was a race where President Trump had to go in and do robocalls, and look, Thompson lost by 6 points. Originally, he was up by 29 or 28, 29 points. Made up a 22-point lead. That's amazing. Okay. But not only that, but he endorsed quite a few candidates during the primary as well. Justin Bamberg of South Carolina, David Bowen of Wisconsin, Clara Hart of South Dakota, Terry Alexander of South Carolina, Carol Emmons in Illinois, others. Okay. All right. Now, look, you might have also gotten some pause here when you heard, wait a minute, he endorsed a pro-life candidate? What the hell is going on? What kind of progressive supports somebody who is pro-life? Well, that is, of course, in reference to Heath Mello. Now, Heath Mello is somebody that Sanders is stumping for in his mayoral race right now. Now, that has got some people pissed off. Some people in the establishment. Now, abortion rights activists, for example, argued that Bernie Sanders and the Democratic Party shouldn't support those who favor restricting abortion. Now, look, I agree with that. You shouldn't go after somebody who wants to eliminate abortion. That's ridiculous, right? Why would the Democratic Party do that? Well, it turns out they're not actually doing that, as Heath Mello is not actually in favor of restricting abortion rights. So let me give you an example here that he uses. Now, he uses Mello's co-sponsorship of a 2009 bill in the Nebraska legislature. Now, what it does is that it gives a woman seeking an abortion the option to see an ultrasound if one is done. So, oh, hey, do you want to see the fetus? Now, look, that sounds a bit similar to previous bills in Republican states where you are forced to get a transvaginal ultrasound if you want an abortion, and you are forced to look at the fetus. Now, Mello said, well, okay, that seems a little extreme. I'm pro-life personally, and I'll get to that in a minute, but we should not be so extreme. If an ultrasound is done, and we're not saying that you have to get one, but if you want, you can see the picture of the baby if you so desire. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Okay. Well, again, that's nuance, right? Now, narrow pro-choice President Elise Hogue said in a statement about this race, about Mello, quote, "The actions today by the DNC to embrace and support a candidate for office who will strip women, one of the most critical constituencies for the party, of our basic rights and freedom, is not only disappointing, it is politically stupid." But wait a minute. Well, I just pointed out how that's not stripping women of their rights. Hey, man, if he was like, let's outlaw abortion 100%, well, I would be against that. All progressives are against that. We believe abortion is a specific right for women, protected under Roe v. Wade. So, no, we would be against any sort of big effort to curtail abortion rights. Asking somebody, hey, do you want a picture of your fetus? No, not really. Okay, that's not really curtailing your rights, is it? I'm not sure how this whole thing equates to stripping women of choice. It sounds a bit like false equivalence. Just saying. Now, in 2009, again, they go to the specific law that was enacted. The version of the legislative bill 675 that became law on a 40-5 vote, by the way, was viewed as a compromise measure. As first introduced, that same bill would have required a woman to look at an ultrasound image. Mello's campaign said he signed on to the bill to support the compromise version. So again, you're getting into nuance here, and you're getting into, okay, let's do some compromise. Let's make this bill, we know it's going to go past, at least let's make it less restrictive. Okay. Now, the compromise version, as I understand it, and I could be wrong, you are not forced to get an ultrasound or look at the fetus. But again, you are asked to see if you want to. That's the specific issue here. Now, I may not be comfortable with that, but hey, that's not eliminating the right to an abortion. That is sort of a curious line in the sand from Mr. King, especially considering that Mello shares his pro-life views, his personal pro-life views, with a couple of other noted Democratic figures. One of them happened to be somebody that you might have heard of, Hillary Clinton vice presidential pick Tim Kaine, who is personally pro-life. But legislatively, he is pro-choice, which means, hey man, my personal beliefs are, I don't believe in abortion, I'm a pro-life person, but I will not legislate that way. I will legislate pro-choice. Okay. Now, you might also recognize this other prominent Democratic figure who holds the same views. That would be Joe Biden, former vice president of the United States. Again, he is personally pro-life, but is pro-choice via legislation. That sounds a lot like Tom Mello. So wait, you want to go after this guy for holding those beliefs that Tim Kaine and Joe Biden held? Again, very curious line in the sand for Mr. King to have. And again, when it comes to policy, well, that's what matters. If you are personally pro-life, then I don't care. It's what policies you put forward that do matter. And this policy, not quite as egregious, but again, I'm not comfortable with it. You should totally get all politicians out of the doctor's office. I don't agree that they should be there. But as far as being restrictive and actually taking away women's rights, well, okay. I'm not in favor of that. And this does not do that. Now, King continues. This whole thing ruined my whole idea of not what only kind of man Sanders is, but what goes into making a heroic politician. I waited until the primaries were effectively over and wrote a post about it, calling Trump and Sanders cult leaders. That is the one public thing that he has. And we went back to see if whether or not he was as big of a Bernie Sanders supporter as he claimed to be, and all you found was Trump and Sanders are all cult leaders. That's it. Where's your public support for Bernie Sanders? I thought you were a big Bernie Sanders guy. Can't really find any evidence of that, can we? Very, very curious indeed. Now, he said, I started trying to tell my friends that he wasn't the saint they thought he was. Again, that bothers me because there are very few people who think he is saintly. Again, they go with the policy. Now, but a charlatan masquerading as a revolutionary. What I encountered and still do was a mix of either blind hero worship, outright denial, or a form of bargaining, or I was just called a neoliberal shill. There's some cases, in some cases, that might be true. I'm just saying. Okay. Now, you want to know a good example of hero worship, right? I'm with her. Just say. I'm with her. It's a pretty good example of that. Need I say more? Now, look, it turns out most Sanders supporters support the policy, not the person. Now, I'm of the mind that when you idolize a person, which Sanders told you not to do, by the way, he's like, hey, it's not about me, it's about us. You're not with me. We're together. We're going to try to do this thing. We're going to try to get a progressive revolution. I need you guys to do it. When you lose sight of those policies, I mean, when you idolize a person, you lose sight of policy, right? And that, again, policy is what drew most people into Bernie Sanders in the first place. Now, that seems to be something that Mr. King didn't understand. Now, if you were an actual Bernie Sanders supporter and not a Johnny-come-lately bandwagoner, he would have been like, hey, I like those policies. I know this guy's got, and at the time, you know, when he was starting his presidency, he had no shot in hell. But a lot of people looked at him and said, hey, we like his policies. We're going to support him regardless, even though he has no chance in hell. Well, later on, as he started to get more popular, you did have some people that would bandwagon. And if he was a Bernie Sanders supporter, well, I could see him being a bandwagoner. Just saying. Now, he continues, after the disastrous defeat of Hillary Clinton at the pussy-grabbing hands of Donald Trump, the Democratic Party is slowly pulling itself back together. New Obama-approved DNC chair Tom Perez has purged the party of the idiots who missed a boat last year and is again reassembling the old Howard Dean 50-state strategy that won Democrat majorities in 2006-2008. Well, look, I don't have any problem with that. He's right. Donald Trump does have pussy-grabbing hands. And yes, Tom Perez was Obama-approved. That's why I was against him during the DNC election. Now, here's where he loses me even more. Now Bernie Sanders is being trot out with Perez in their unity tour to hopefully quell the Democratic Civil War. Okay. Again, I guess it's a factual statement. It seems to be what they're doing. It also could be not just because to quell the Democratic Civil War, but could be the fact that he's the most popular politician in America. It kind of would make sense to go and travel with him. And look, Perez jumped on the bandwagon. Bernie Sanders was going to do this tour anyway. Tom Perez is like, hey, bring me along. I want to come with. maybe I'll be popular too if I hang around with Bernie Sanders. No. As some recent stops in this unity tour have shown, no, he's still not popular. Tom Perez, nobody likes Tom Perez. Now, let's see. Let's continue with this, right? And wouldn't you know it, the man who spent a lifetime never calling himself a Democrat is botching the whole unity thing. He can't help but turn the whole operation to something about himself. Politics is a business of relationships and compromise. This is ironic. Neither of which Sanders seems very good at. The only thing he's been shown a true talent for, besides last year's incomprehensible treachery. Incomprehensible treachery! What is he talking about? He has been pointing out what he perceives as the insufficient values of people who would otherwise be his allies. Oh, wait. So, you mean the same people who got together to destroy him during the primary, right? Those people. Those so-called allies. No, let me talk about treachery, right? Only treachery was the DNC who collaborated with Hillary Clinton's campaign and the media to not only prop up Donald Trump, but to destroy Bernie Sanders by waiving any sort of impartiality. The DNC chair was supposed to be impartial towards both candidates. They were not. That's why Debbie Wasserman Schultz is former DNC chair. That's why she is disgraced. That's why the person that was the interim chair, Donna Brazile, also got removed because she was disgraced because she helped out and favored Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders. You've got to be kidding me. I mean, look, see, Donna Brazile, Jordan Chariot and the Young Turks broke this story where Donna Brazile was giving questions to the Hillary Clinton campaign. And guess what she said? You're badgering women. How dare you ask me that question? You are badgering women. No. That's not what's going on here. That's absolutely ridiculous. No, she was caught giving questions to Hillary Clinton, not Bernie Sanders, just Hillary Clinton, from CNN. I know that likely didn't make a difference, but again, it's the intent. The intent is to put one candidate over the other so that they win. If that doesn't set any warning signs off for you, then you were missing the point. Okay? Now look, again, not only that, but there's that assertion that Bernie Sanders is so terrible at compromise. Well, it's kind of ridiculous. I guess it's weird because somebody who knew Bernie Sanders from 2006 should probably know the little fact that he was known as the Amendment King. This is somebody who got so many co-signers and so many amendments into so much legislation that he has broken congressional records. Oops. Not only that, but he's got a good record of bipartisan deal making. For example, he worked with John McCain in order to advance and ultimately pass some bills to help our veterans. So here he is doing amendments and doing bipartisan policy. This is the same kind of bullshit attack that they tried to pull during the primary. Oh, Bernie Sanders spent so long in Congress, got nothing done. Nothing. Except when he got a whole bunch of other things done. Because again, in Congress, it is a deliberate body. And you have to make deals, and you have to do compromise, and you do amendments. You do all these things. Okay? That's how you get things done. You don't just propose. I mean, look, most of the legislation that gets proposed is immediately shot down. Again, that's what I mean by deliberative body. They take a long time to actually do real legislation. It takes a while, and it's very difficult to get things passed, especially when it comes to divided government. This guy does not understand. For somebody who was a fan of Bernie Sanders for so long, doesn't seem to understand that. Doesn't seem to understand how any of this works. Now, he continues. While Democrats have started cursing more, Perez, Gillibrand, Waters, Lieu, and taking a more aggressive stance against Trump, which, hey, Ted Lieu, gotta love that guy's tweets. Sanders is still the Johnny-come-lately to primary endorsements and a lukewarm supporter of those who would stand a chance in these off-year special elections. Again, I go back to James Thompson in Kansas, whom he wholeheartedly supported, yet the Democratic Party provided nothing in that race. In a winnable race in Kansas. I'm just saying, James Thompson, look him up. Now, most recently with his botched John Ossoff support. Now, John Ossoff, of course, he's like, I don't know if this guy's really progressive. I don't know too much about that race, to be honest with you, but again, that's what he's referring to. Now, he also takes aim at Our Revolution PAC, saying that it has done next to nothing in broadening what would have been a progressive comeback. There still has been no sharing of his massive email list with the DNC, something nearly every politician does with their political party. Now, look, there is this argument inside the DNC. It is really hilarious to sit there and watch. So, like, Sanders not a Democrat. He's not a Democrat. He's not one of us. So we shouldn't listen to him. We should kick him out. But we should. But he should make sure to share his email list with the rest of the party. Wait a minute. Is Bernie Sanders a Democrat or isn't he? Do you want him to be a Democrat or do you not want him to be a Democrat? I don't understand. I mean, I love this argument, right? Because it goes both ways and it's incoherent. Sanders isn't a Democrat. He should totally share that email list with us because we want it. But he's not a Democrat. We hate Bernie Sanders. He's a sexist. He's a misogynist. He's a cult of personality. Why isn't he a fellow Democrat? Why doesn't he just change party and be a Democrat? Why doesn't he run as an independent? Why didn't he run as president as an independent? Make up your fucking minds, dude. You have no idea what you want. You have no idea. As far as Our Revolution goes, the guy doesn't run it. So he's not telling them what to do. This is a PAC that's run by Jeff Weaver. Bernie Sanders don't control this, okay? I don't think he can. I don't think he's legally allowed to. But you have to check with me on that one. Now he continues. The other thing that kills me about the numbskullery of Sanders and his obnoxious true believers. So now he's going after you guys. They made the deadly mistake of ignoring that there is an equal number of people on the other side of the ideological spectrum who wholeheartedly believe the complete opposite of what they do, and they are just as passionate about it. Does he not know that Medicare for All, this guy, polls incredibly well with the majority of Americans? Does he not know that? He should. If he's ever looked at a damn poll in his life, he would know that progressive policies actually poll incredibly well with the American people, even Republicans. There's a majority of Republicans, I believe it's what, 48% compared to 36%, 48, 47, that say, yes, we would like a Medicare for all system. Funny that's a progressive policy. And yet, no, the Bernie Sanders is the guy that's Medicare for all. Hillary Clinton was a person that's, no, let's keep the ACA the same. Let's keep it status quo. Everything is perfect the way that it is. Really? Okay. But no, there are people that are wholeheartedly against his agenda. Maybe some of it, yes. Nobody's going to agree 100% on everything. But generally, progressive policies actually do very, very well in America. Okay. What about minimum wage? That also polls very well, even among Republicans. Tuition-free education. It might help this guy to actually look at some data for once in a while. But what does Mr. King think of all that? Well, he calls it, quote, left-wing magical thinking. So these policies that are incredibly popular with the American people, that is Left-wing magical thinking. Again, what makes you think that this guy was a Bernie Sanders supporter? He continues making the case that he knows nothing about Bernie Sanders whatsoever or the policies that he attached his name to. Knows nothing. You know what he sounds like? He sounds like a Hillary Clinton supporter. An establishment Democrat. With your left-wing magical thinking. It's Medicare for all. We don't care about that. No, that's magical. Not going to happen. That's never, ever going to happen, single payer. Never. Oh, boy. Now, he also says, playing to white anger over economic insecurity only gets you so far. Look, we just did a poll, a survey of American people, where white people, 55% of Americans, 55% of white people approve of Bernie Sanders. Where 73% of African Americans and 58% of women approve of Bernie Sanders. He is the most popular politician in America. Not only that, but 80% of Democrats approve of Bernie Sanders. And yet, no. Bernie Sanders, he's just playing to white anger. Bernie, bro. What's next? Bernie, bro? Yeah. And look, do you think women, African Americans, and Latinos are not concerned about economic insecurity? Well, economic equality just happens to be a huge part of racial equality. Let me give you a quote from this Bernie bro who talked about this. This was back in 1968 during a rally of sanitation workers in Memphis on March 18th, 1968. Now our struggle is for genuine equality, which means economic equality. For we now know that it isn't enough to integrate lunch counters. What does it profit a man to be able to eat at an integrated lunch counter if he doesn't have enough money to buy a hamburger? God, what a Bernie bro. You know who that guy was who said that? That was Martin Luther King Jr. Oops. Bernie bro. But no. All he's doing is playing to white economic insecurity. What a load of crap. Look, not only does King go after Sanders, not Martin Luther King, but Steve King go after Sanders, he actually goes and lauds Trump. There is still no difference between Sanders and Trump. In fact, Trump is more virtuous because when he picked a party in which to run for president, he actually took the name Republican, committed to it, and ran with it. This is the old party loyalty. We got to be loyal to the party, man. We got to be loyal to the team. Why aren't you playing with the team? You got to be part of the team. Team Democrat. Why aren't you playing Team Democrat? Okay. Sanders, who only took the name Democrat to run for president, and when he failed, went back to being an independent, just like he said he was going to do, even while attending these silly unity rallies. Now, he goes on to end this dumpster fire of an article by asking this, quote, is it fair to lie to millions of people if it's for a good cause, like universal health care or free college? The answer would be yes, of course. He obviously is not doing it for all the money. And if we're naive enough to think that it's not all for ego, then it must be the furtherance of his populist agenda, right? Yet that agenda is no closer to reality now than it was when he ran in 2016. And being the cynical operator he is, Sanders knows this. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. He lost. Why isn't his policy any closer? He lost. What? That doesn't make any sense. You've got to be kidding me. Look, talk about losing, right? Okay. Well, Hillary Clinton ran as a centrist moderate, right? On the ideas that, well, Bernie Sanders, his agenda is not going to work. This populist agenda, not going to work. We can never, ever get it passed. Trump's like, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. We're going to cover everybody. It's going to be great. It's going to be tremendous. Who won? I'm just saying. And look, maybe you should tell that to the emerging popularity of Medicare for All, which had been introduced into the House by John Conyers. This is H.R. 676. Medicare for All bill. Now again, back to Hillary Clinton, his policies were denounced by Clinton, who called them unrealistic. Now, if she had won, I dare say that we might actually be further away from those policies. Because look, I honestly believe that the failure of Trump care and the waking up of the left, the real resistance, not the fake resistance, the faux resistance, is actually finally pushing real progressive policies to the forefront, in which a candidate could run and possibly win on in 2020. This has been an awakening for the left. But no, it's not an awakening. It's all about, according to Mr. King, Bernie's ego. Quote, his pursuit isn't his stated goals, it's his unstated goals. It's its own station in history, ego, and popularity. It's his desire to be a liberal Goldwater, a standard of uncompromising political courage and rock-hard superior values. To be generous, we could say that it's his goal to inspire countless generations of progressives, makes him an honorable man. But of course, as you're going to hear, he's not going to be generous at all. He just so happened to go about achieving that goal in the most dishonorable way possible by backstabbing, lying, and sacrificing his own people and helping hand the country over to a creature like Trump. Maybe that's what makes political legends in America. You can't make a historic omelet without breaking a few contemporary hearts, and if you're really good at it, they won't even notice. The smugness in this article and just the outright bullshit. You want to talk about ego? Let's talk about Hillary Clinton's run. Let's talk about that ego. Look, nobody even knew why she was running. Why? Because it's her turn? Well, that happens to seem like somebody with a big ego. Hey, it's my turn. It's my turn. I'm going to run. Oh, what do you run for? What do you stand for? I don't know. It's my turn. That's what I'm standing for. Me. This is the classic attack against someone who actually champions real policy. So you want to know who gave us Trump? Not only the Electoral College, but the Clinton campaign, the DNC. For example, her mistakes are she didn't campaign in Michigan and Wisconsin. She didn't have a vision for America. Now, what she did have in spades is hubris. Okay? And look, now we all happen to suffer for that hubris. So if you want to blame anybody for Trump, the DNC, Hillary Clinton, and the neoliberal establishment and their identity politics. Now, Mr. King, you claim to have been a Bernie Sanders supporter, but as we've seen through this article, I claim bullshit. You were never a true Sanders supporter. You either jumped in the bandwagon, which is being kind, or you're an incredible liar working for the establishment, maybe unwittingly or wittingly, because they're afraid of Bernie Sanders and his newfound popularity, and more importantly, you're afraid of the policy positions that right now are anathema to the policy positions of the big donors in Washington. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.